I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I am speaking with the composers for the Hulu limited series We Were the Lucky Ones, Rachel Portman and Jon Ehrlich. Thank you both for joining us. Rachel, I'll start with you. Had you ever met Jon prior to working on this project together?
No, we hadn't met. No, but so I became familiar with his music, and it seemed like a very good idea, and I was very keen to work with him from listening to the way he writes his the way he uses melody, and basically also just the heart in the way in the music that he writes.
And what was that? And Jon, what was that process like? Starting to collaborate with someone who you'd never met before. And I'm guessing you were also working on different continents, and you really weren't in the presence of each other.
Right. Well, I mean, the distance wasn't an issue at all. And in some ways, it was actually beneficial because we could kind of like hand off. At the end of my day, she was starting her day. But the weird thing is, Rachel didn't know me, but I kind of knew her from all of her scores. So in a way, I feel like I was working with someone who I'd known for 30 years. So it wasn't really a stretch for me. If anything, it was kind of a dream come true. I mean, I was such a huge fan of her work, and felt that a lot of her work had kind of informed the way I work. So in some ways, it felt like a very natural collaboration from my standpoint.
Back to you, Rachel. It's interesting whenever I feel like whenever a project about the Holocaust is done, because for some people it can be felt like very treaded territory. And a lot of that can come down to the score, it feels like. And I'm curious as to, was there any apprehension to doing a score for a film that takes place in the midst of the Holocaust for you?
I no. The short answer is no. I approached this, and I read it and saw it when I first saw the first episode, very much with an open mind and connected to it as a human story in the way that it's made. I wasn't referencing or thinking about referencing anything else. And there's a real immediacy about the story and what is happening to the characters. And it's for me, and I think for both of us, it was about sort of getting under the skin of what was happening in the drama. And I wasn't thinking about what, okay, this is a Holocaust drama or not. And actually, it's a story primarily about a family in terrible circumstances who are split up all over the world, and encountering all these things that happen, and it's them finding their way back to each other.
Yeah, I'll just add to that in addition, Tommy Kail, the director, and Erica Lopez, the writer, were very clear from the outset that they wanted this to be relatable, and that it wasn't really a historical drama in that sense. It was a story about a family. And so we were really tasked with not referring to it from that sort of perspective of this is something that happened at this particular time in history, but this is a story about a family that loves each other and struggles to get back to each other.
And turning now back to the score, to specifically the score, Jon, were there any particular instruments that you chose in the score that you chose to emphasize in composing the score?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of, obvious intellectual thing was just that one of the main characters, Addie, is a composer and a pianist. So, I think that there was a sort of a natural inclination to to the piano as a central instrument. But I think, and Rachel can speak to this better, I think, but I think it really was more of an instinctual. It wasn't. We really didn't think it through as much as just sort of found our way into it with the orchestration. We had some ideas, but I mean, a lot of times you have all sorts of ideas at the outset. For instance, you know, I spent some time kind of creating you know, some textures, some sort of more sort of processed sound designy textures that were, you know, somewhat organic, some more electronic. But it was like it was a pretty big palette of sounds that that I anticipated might be useful. And in the end, I probably only used like 15% of what I had sort of put together, which I think goes to the point that, you know, you can kind of think about what's going to work. And then when you actually start interacting with picture, it kind of dictates instrumentation and palette.
And to you, Rachel, did you use any specific instruments to emphasize certain themes or tones within the series?
Well, there's a lot of solo cello in the score, and you know that really came out of I guess the music that we were both writing. But you know, for example, you know, like in the main theme, the title theme, that was, it just seemed to be right to be played on cello. It's actually pretty hard to play on cello. I felt very sorry for the cellist, because it's a really tricky thing, even though we had brilliant cellists I seem to have no problem doing it. But it seemed like the right voice, because it's not it's mellow but very moving and rich without being sentimental, I think. And it sort of that, and again, John was talking about, you know, the way we use the piano. Use the piano as a motor often, which was aside from other layers and electronic sort of layers, but the piano is often used as a good motor to create movement, and sort of movement throughout scenes, and again, melodically we used the piano a lot. So and the palette of instruments was really, it sort of grew out of the watching and working with films themselves. It's how it always seems to work. You know, you're sitting with something again, and the music sort of gradually you focus in on something and a sound develops, and then we played the music we were doing to the director and writer, and they loved it. And so we sort of continued in that vein and went deeper and deeper as the score developed and grew.
You know, one other thing I would just say about the cello, which is kind of interesting in thinking back, was we were writing quite a bit in a very high register for the cello, which I don't know if this is the way you came to it, Rachel, or not, but it seemed like it was almost an accident, like with that piece that plays with Genek, Baby Feeds, right? Like initially it was kind of in the, you know, natural tessitura for the instrument. And then we were like, well, let's just try it up an octave. And it was, I don't know that it seemed like it would be extreme, but it somehow was like, had that kind of yearning and striving and reaching kind of quality that we ended up, you know, continuing with in a lot of places.
Yep. Yearning and striving and hope, you know, hopefulness, hoping to be reconnected was a big inspiration for writing the music and the themes, you know, and I think the cello has it speaks to that, and the register of the cello, obviously, that we were writing in sometimes speaks to that.
And John, I'm curious. I'm always curious when I talk to composers. Was there any scene that you found challenging to get the right tone for in the score?
Yes.
I can't think of one. I really can't think of one.
No, I mean, there were a lot. I think, it's always like amazing when, you kind of sit down and within the first like 30 seconds, your fingers just go to the right kind of place and you find yourself like, right away kind of being on the path to what it's going to be. But um so often, obviously, there's just a lot of, trial and error and just, finger painting and tossing, canvases out the window. And, one in particular was this sequence we call digging, which is at the end of episode 4. I mean, I don't want to give too much away for people who haven't started watching yet. But it's a harrowing 8 minutes. And it's devastating. And it was really hard to kind of strike the balance of creating the kind of anxiety and emotion and sort of intimacy with this particular character's very difficult kind of almost a Sophie's choice kind of moment. So there's an intimacy, but it's also like it's epic. It's this moment that speaks to all of humanity at the same time. So that took some work, and that took 2 or 3 um, drafts before I think we ended up where we needed to be.
One of the things that I want to say is that this project felt so important to both of us, and we invested so much in it. Not that we wouldn't invest, a lot in every project, but this was a very special one. I think we both felt that. Well, I know we both felt that, and therefore, the work on one hand was extremely rewarding and nourishing, because we were working with extremely good material and also material that we cared deeply about, and it felt like a very important thing to be given this task to write the music for We Were the Lucky Ones. And so therefore the endeavor was huge, and if we were rewriting or reworking on something, that was absolutely a given. It wasn't ever a task. It felt like, yeah, we'll dig deeper. We'll do what, and those kind of creative collaborations are really, really rich and important when you're working with good directors, good showrunners, good writers. And we had that in spades on this. It was very, and for that, it made it a wonderful project for both of us. Not only did we have that, John and I had a really, really good collaboration that worked naturally. It flowed, huge mutual respect for each other. We had, sort of different things that we said, hey, how about, do you want to do that? And I'd be like, shall I do this? And, we were really, really, sort of complementing each other and, working on the orchestration and so it's a particularly a very special project for us.
I want to add something to that. I think that sometimes something that's overlooked is how much trust is like the magic ingredient in making, making the creative process work. I mean, Rachel and I had this incredible kind of trust with each other, and I certainly give her all the credit in a sense. It was easy for me to trust her because, I was such a fan of her work, and I was learning from her, and so that was easy. But I mean, I give her a lot of credit for, the sort of grace and generosity that it took for her to trust me. And in addition, really, I think it's kind of stemmed from, the creative leadership that we had. Tommy and Erica were brilliant, and so clearly, like, articulate about and thoughtful about every detail, and yet they really kind of gave us so much space to operate and made us feel supported, that they weren't going to let us like stray off the path. Like they never let us. They were very clear when they weren't getting exactly what they wanted, but at the same time, they never made us feel like they were standing over our shoulders. They really wanted us to kind of have the experience of discovering the score for ourselves.
And just to sort of wrap this up on a bit of a different subject, to you, Rachel, we are an awards site, and you are an Oscar winner for Best Comedy or Musical Score for Emma in 1996. And I was curious as to what was that experience like when that was all happening for you?
Well, it was a huge surprise. I couldn't believe I got to go for a start. I was so excited to go, and I was never expecting to win, and it took forever to get up out of my chair and walk to the stage. That was just a horror. I can still remember it, and I had to walk really slowly because the camera operator was in front of me going backwards, and I thought, oh no, the applause is going to stop before I get there to the stage. I was so worried. But the televised version, I think they go to a commercial or something then, but I don't think it really, or a clip or something. So, I mean, it was unreal, and I can't really remember anything about it until I was out the door the other side, and we were going off to the governor's ball or something like that. I mean, it was great, but it's a moment of extreme experience.
Well, Rachel and John, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best over the next couple of weeks. And to all of our viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to this video. And don't forget to go to goldderby.com to keep updating your Emmy predictions in advance of the nominations coming up in July. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.